Hi, my name is Mark Bates. I'm a metabolic health coach, and today's topic is debunking the fiber myth, optimizing digestive health through metabolic restoration. This is going to be an interesting topic. Okay, clinical evidence destroys the fiber myth. A case controlled study involving 63 constipated patients produced groundbreaking results that overturned decades of nutritional dogma. Patients who eliminated fiber entirely experienced complete symptom resolution, while those consuming high fiber diets saw their symptoms worsen. The findings were not only statistically significant, but also directly contradicted government dietary recommendations that position fiber as essential for digestive health, thereby underscoring the significance of the research. You understand that there is no research essentially behind that 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 dietary recommendation, right? The study represents more than an anomaly. It exposes the fundamental flaw in medical professionals' understanding of digestive mechanics and metabolic health optimization. The mechanical reality of fiber. Understanding why fiber elimination works requires examining the actual mechanics of digestion rather than theoretical assumptions. Insoluble fiber doesn't dissolve during digestion. It simply adds bulk to stool mass, creating a larger volume that must pass through the anal sphincter's fixed diameter. The result is mechanical obstruction. The sphincter works harder to accommodate increased volume, often resulting in incomplete evacuation and constipation symptoms. Did you ever think about that? Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you take fiber. This mechanistic understanding dismantles several persistent fiber myths. The biggest misconception involves fiber somehow moistening stools to ease the passage. Clinical evidence shows that stool moisture content remains constant regardless of fiber intake or water consumption. Despite lacking physiological support, the moistening myth persists in medical education. When soluble fiber undergoes fermentation by gut bacteria, it produces gas and short-chain fatty acids. This gas production directly explains why high-fiber diets cause bloating and abdominal discomfort. Medical professionals often dismiss these symptoms as temporary adjustment periods. However, they represent the predictable mechanical and biochemical consequences of fiber fermentation. Hidden digestive triggers in low-carb foods. Many individuals following low carbohydrate approaches assume eliminating grains and traditional high fiber foods resolves digestive issues. This assumption creates a dangerous blind spots. Popular low carb foods often function as FODMAP bombs. FODMAPs, fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols, are short chain carbohydrates poorly absorbed in the small intestine. Cauliflower represents the most problematic example. It has become the poster child of low carb substitutes, but it contains oligosaccharides that trigger digestive distress. People replace rice with cauliflower rice and pasta with cauliflower alternatives, then experience unexplained bloating and discomfort. Broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts create similar fermentation issues. The artificial sweetener situation proves even more insidious. Polyols like erythritol, xylitol, and sorbitol are FODMAPs by definition. They represent the P in the FODMAP acronym. These compounds are marketed heavily in low-carb products as gut-friendly sugar alternatives. Consumers unknowingly overdose on polyols through multiple daily servings of protein bars, sugar-free gums, and keto desserts. Research on non-celiac gluten sensitivity reveals the scope of this misattribution problem. When researchers isolated fructans rather than gluten, they found these FODMAPs were responsible for patients' symptoms. This suggests that many food sensitivities attributed to specific proteins are carbohydrate fermentation issues. The low-carb community must recognize that carbohydrate quality matters as much as quantity for digestive tolerance. And also understand that the human gut is not designed to ferment anything like a cow or a lamb is designed to. Herbivores are designed for fermentation, humans are not. Microbiome causation fallacy. This misattribution problem extends beyond individual foods into microbiome research, creating dangerous oversimplifications about causation versus correlation. Popular claims link Firmicutes bacteria with obesity and bacteroidetes with weight loss. This association leads to the conclusion that manipulating bacterial populations can control weight. The assumption ignores the fundamental question of causation direction. The 2006 study launching the microbiome weight connection showed that bacteria from obese mice could increase fat gain in recipient mice through enhanced energy harvest. The results appear to provide convincing evidence for bacterial causation. Critical examination reveals massive methodological limitations that make real-world applications questionable. Okay? The study used germ-free mice with no existing bacterial competition, creating a completely artificial scenario that doesn't exist in humans with established microbiomes. Needless fact that these are on mice, not humans, okay? The energy source was fiber, which becomes irrelevant for individuals following low-fiber diets. Most importantly, the study didn't account for the appetite-suppressing effects of ketones produced from short-chain fatty acids in real-world metabolic scenarios. Obese individuals may have different bacterial profiles, but this could easily result from their dietary patterns, metabolic state, or medication use rather than as a cause of obesity. The bacteria might adapt to the environment created by the host's lifestyle and metabolic condition. We're examining the aftermath and assuming it's the cause. Okay, real quick, please like, share, subscribe to our channel. It does help a great deal. Thank you in advance. Okay, the metabolic first framework. The study's findings call for a significant shift in the approach to gut health optimization. Instead of adding supposed beneficial compounds, the focus should be removing irritants. The foundation involves the systematic elimination of foods causing mechanical or chemical irritation. This means identifying and removing FODMAPs comprehensively, including hidden sources in low-carb alternatives. Gut health often improves through subtraction, not addition. Instead of adding fiber supplements or probiotics, the focus shifts to removing foods causing fermentation and gas production. Many patients discovered that their sensitive stomachs responded normally to fermentable substrates they unknowingly consumed. Metabolic optimization becomes crucial because the gut environment reflects overall metabolic health. When patients achieve stable blood glucose through proper macronutrient ratios and meal timing, digestive symptoms often resolve without direct gut intervention. Okay? The gut responds to systematic metabolic signals rather than operating in isolation. Food quality within any macronutrient framework consistently improves gut function. Whether someone thrives on low-carb, moderate-carb, or higher-carb approaches, choosing foods that don't trigger fermentation or inflammatory responses produces reliable results. When dietary irritants are removed and metabolic health optimized, the microbiome naturally shifts towards a more beneficial profile without direct manipulation. Individual tolerance patterns. Systematic identification of dietary irritants requires complete elimination of known FODMAP categories for 2 to 3 weeks, not a partial reduction. FODMAP reductions can be delayed by 12 to 24 hours and are often dose dependent. Fermentation thresholds vary dramatically between individuals. The cumulative effect proves particularly insidious. Patients might tolerate small amounts of individual FODMAPs, but experience significant symptoms when the combined daily load exceeds their threshold. This explains why partial elimination approaches fail consistently. The reintroduction phase reveals individual tolerance thresholds rather than blanket food restrictions. Some patients handle moderate amounts of certain FODMAPs, but need complete avoidance of others. Patterns correlate strongly with metabolic dysfunction. Polyols tend to be most universally problematic, especially in metabolically compromised individuals. So get rid of all the artificial sweeteners. Trust me on this. Patients with insulin resistance or prediabetes often have virtually zero tolerance for sugar or alcohol, even in small amounts. Yes, it doesn't raise your blood sugar, but they do havoc in your guts. Oligosaccharides show clear relationships to gut transit time, which is often slower in metabolically unhealthy individuals. Poor glucose control frequently involves delayed gastric emptying, creating more time for bacterial fermentation. Your gut was not designed to be a fermentation laboratory, okay? The most predictable pattern involves patients with the worst metabolic markers consistently having the lowest FODMAP tolerance across all categories. Metabolic dysfunction creates a perfect storm of slow transit, altered bacterial populations, and compromised digestive enzyme function. Okay, let's talk about the metabolic restoration timeline. When specific timeline triggers are eliminated, FODMAP-related symptom resolution occurs, typically within 48 to 72 hours. The speed of mechanical irritation symptoms disappearance is often shocking once fermentable substrates are removed. People just don't understand it. It happens very quickly. Metabolic restoration follows an entirely different timeline. Patients with insulin resistance or metabolic dysfunction often need 3 to 6 months of consistent dietary intervention before digestive resilience improves. And we find that a lot with people we work with, and even for myself, right? A lot of this stuff just takes time to resolve. The false recovery phenomenon represents a critical clinical observation. Patients feel dramatically better after eliminating FODMAPs and assume they're healed. Yeah, I took out the FODMAPs 2 to 4 weeks later. I'm feeling great. I'm going to go back to eating them. No, this is a false recovery. Okay? They remain hypersensitive to tiny amounts of these compounds without addressing the underlying metabolic dysfunction. Accidental consumption of small amounts of ethanol or cauliflower produces severe symptoms that wouldn't affect metabolically healthy individuals. Ketosis adaptation temporarily worsens FODMAP sensitivity for 2 to 4 weeks, maybe a touch longer. Even previously tolerated foods become problematic during this transition period. Once stable fat adaptation is achieved, right? So once you are definitely burning fat and not sugar on a consistent basis, tolerance often exceeds the pre-intervention baseline. Once your body is adjusted, it usually can handle things better. Doesn't mean you should go back to eating these FODMAPs. I'm just saying they can handle it more. The digestive system becomes more resilient than originally, but only after completing the full metabolic transition. You got to get healed before you can start throwing stuff back into it. I don't know why you want to throw this stuff back in there, but you got to get healed first. Okay, that's just my feeling. True metabolic restoration requires fasting glucose stability, consistent readings between 80 and 90 milligram deciliter without significant daily variation. Right? Postprandial glucose response indicates insulin sensitivity. That means that when you eat something, your blood glucose does go up, right? But if once you're insulin sensitive, your body produces insulin, and very quickly that blood glucose should go down within a couple hours, okay? Typically. With restored patients showing minimal glucose spikes even when reintroducing moderate carbohydrates. Now, if you're severely metabolically impaired, or you spent years with insulin resistance like I have, I respond to badly to carbohydrates, period. Even now, after several years on a ketogenic carnivore type diet, I still respond badly, and I probably will for a long time, if not the rest of my life. So just get used to that, right? If you've abused your body, I abused mine for 40 plus years, right? And actually probably closer to 50. Uh, it's going to take time, and give yourself time. And by the way, once you get healed, why go back? Anyways, that's just my feelings. Okay. Clinical implementation strategy. Gut health recommendations must be stratified based on metabolic status rather than implying universal protocols. Okay, once again, don't make changes to your gut health that everyone else is doing. You need to know where you are metabolically. Are you healthy? Are you unhealthy? What is your insulin sensitivity? How are you doing with your digestion? Things like that, okay? Metabolically healthy individuals can pursue more liberal FODMAP reintroduction, focusing on identifying personal tolerance thresholds throughout systematic testing. Patients with clear metabolic dysfunction require near complete FODMAP, if not complete elimination of all FODMAPs during the metabolic repair phase. Their compromised transit time and altered bacterial environment amplify every fermentation reaction. Attempting FODMAP reintroduction while metabolically inflexible sets patients up for failure. The timing becomes critical. Metabolic restoration must precede digestive liberalization. Patients often struggle for months with gut protocols that would work for metabolically healthy individuals because they attempt food tolerance expansion while the underlying metabolic machinery remains broken. Okay? Once again, depending upon how you are lined up, how your body has been dealing with food and how long you've been putting stuff into it that you probably shouldn't, and how long that you've been using poor fuel choices. It may take a long time for your body to heal completely. Okay, it can take years for seed oils to completely get removed from your cell walls. Right, the half-life on seed oils is very high, and it can take 2 years, up to 2 years, if not longer, for your body to replace all the seed oil that was used in your cell wall construction, which is different from healthy cholesterol, and you're still getting the inflammatory effects of that for years and years. So give yourself time, right? The most profound shift involves moving away from heal the gut to fix metabolism. Don't think about healing your gut. Think about fixing your metabolism, eating an appropriate metabolic, a species-appropriate diet for your digestive system. Everything else will heal. Just give it time, okay? Fix your metabolism and it optimizes gut function. Ultimately becomes the call. When metabolic restoration is prioritized through appropriate macronutrient ratios and the elimination of metabolic stressors, the gut environment naturally becomes more resilient and tolerant. Okay, professional resistance and paradigm, because of a paradigm shift. Resistance to this evidence-based approach is intense and often emotional because it challenges decades of professional identity and training. Many practitioners have built careers on fiber recommendations and microbiome protocols. There's in fact, a YouTube influencer whose whole life is about telling you how your microbiome affects everything and which bacteria you should be taking for specific things. Trust me, it doesn't work. Your body doesn't repopulate your microbiome based upon the bacteria you absorb. It's almost all killed in the stomach to begin with because of the high stomach acid. If your stomach acid is not high enough to kill the bacteria, you have a problem there. That's a metabolic problem of low acidity in your stomach. So that means you're not breaking down the fats and proteins properly for digestion. All kinds of other problems occur. You need to fix that before you worry about fixing the bacteria in your gut. The most common pushback involves anecdotal claims of clinical success, which completely ignores selection bias and placebo effects. Patients who eliminate processed foods and adopt structured dietary approaches often feel better regardless of specific intervention. This is what happens when people go to these vegan um, or vegetarian clinics, right? And for 2, 4, 6 weeks, they're eating nothing but vegetables, and they're going, "I feel great after this." Obviously, we're not supposed to eat meat. Well, what's happening is that they're actually eliminating seed oils, processed foods, and a lot of the grain products from their diet. Not realizing those are just probably the top 3 stressors on your gut. And yes, you will feel better from that. Okay? You eliminate processed foods. That's anything that comes in a box. You eliminate seed oils, which are just poison on the shelf, my opinion, right? And eliminate a lot of the grains that you're not supposed to be eating, like whole wheats and stuff like that, which have all the fiber in it, which is bad for you, right? You eliminate that stuff, you're going to feel better. But replacing it with vegetables, which a lot of broccoli, a lot of cauliflower, right? A lot of lettuce. If you stop eating lettuce for a while and then you start eating, you realize how bitter lettuce tastes, how terrible kale is, right? And you don't realize that because you get used to that bitterness, right? So that's why these things work. Okay, if that works for you, great. But here's the problem: eventually, to get enough calories to live, you're going to have to add grains back into your diet. Okay, so maybe you choose white rice, right? You know, uh, I quote Dr. Westman a lot in my videos. Dr. Westman's up in North Carolina at Duke University. Duke University had what was called the rice diet approach 20 years ago, approximately. And that was primarily eating nothing but rice and just a little bit, very little protein, very little fat. And people felt better over it, but they were constantly hungry and they couldn't keep it up, and it wasn't nutritionally sufficient. Okay? Same thing happens if you go vegan or vegetarian and you don't replace the fats, which is your primary source of protein, of calories, and you become very calorie deficient, right? There was this Russian vegan who only ate fresh fruit. It's the only thing she ate, right? And she had a pretty large following on YouTube and on social media, and she just died from malnutrition. She literally died from not eating properly. Okay? I don't remember her name, but you can look her up. You gotta get the nutrition your body needs, and you gotta do it in a way that doesn't destroy your gut. Okay? So a lot of practitioners will tell you that you're improving because you're taking all this fiber, when the fiber is actually the worst thing you can do. Okay? And the probiotic protocols. Once again, I've got a video on probiotics. They don't survive your gut. They don't survive your stomach. And the few that might survive the stomach, they don't, as a rule, take hold in your intestines, and you don't really want them to in the first place. Okay? Your gut will take care of itself. Right? So you have to just get away from all these people who are telling you, take this fiber, take this probiotic. It's a health scam. It really is. They're just trying to get your money. Okay? But this is a big paradigm shift because people have been is just indoctrinated with this idea that you have to take fiber. You go to the grocery store, there's a whole aisle full of fiber supplements to help you go poo. Okay? I don't think so. Okay, so what we want you to do is get to a clinical idea of improving your metabolism and do the research. Listen to my stories. Talk to other people. You want to get your metabolism working properly. Your gut will clear up automatically from that. Okay? Okay. So what you want to do is work on that. Remember, it's very individual. What works for you may not work for somebody else. What works for your friend is probably not going to work for you. So just keep that in mind. It's very individual. Okay? Your recommendations on what you eat should match your personal metabolism needs and not follow just a one-size-fits-all type of protocol. Okay? There's all kinds of ways of doing it, but quite honestly, the easiest way is just eliminate anything that's FODMAP, That's almost all vegetables. It's almost all of the artificial sweeteners, all that stuff, anything that's plant-based. Go to a carnivore diet that's primarily made up of ruminant animals, beef, lamb, bison, water, maybe a little bit of dairy, primarily in the form of butter. A lot of butter. I like butter, and your gut will heal on its own because you're feeding it properly. All right. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or any questions, please go ahead and leave it in the appropriate section. No, my video stopped. Okay, that's all right. Leave it in the appropriate section. If you have any ideas for something you'd like me to cover in an upcoming video. Remember, this is a community. I'm here to try to answer your questions. Please go ahead and leave that there. I will find them, and we'll do our best to get them in up as soon as possible. Take care.